Hey, it's Narrative Tarot. I'm like in the car and I don't want to do like a whole bunch. I'm in the car. So, I don't really care to like have the light in here on. Well, let's see. It shouldn't be that bad. So, I noticed that like the video it cut off after a certain point. I said more after that when it came to my spiritual journey. But after I decided to get my like life together, I was explaining that I had taken interest in Reiki courses, and I had taken an interest in like somatic experiencing, somatic therapy, and I wanted to explore that more, but I didn't know how. So I ended up like I ended up like taking some Udemy Reiki courses, learning about color and energy and things like that. So before I took a Reiki course, like with an instructor in person, I'd already taken those things. So I was pretty familiar with like, especially for the Usui, like the symbols, like Choku Rei and things like that. But I wasn't too into the subject, and that I was like well versed, and I knew that there was different branches of Reiki and stuff like that. I didn't know. So basically, there we have it. So I got really serious. I always get really serious during Capricorn season, during Cancer season, which is my birth month, like birth season. I get really hazy, really aloof, really just not with it. Mentally not with it. Capricorn, I kind of sober up a lot, and I end up doing a lot of things. So I ended up publishing a book of poetry in like 2018 after I like left my job, the job that I was working full time, and then I was going to school. I did that with this grandiose vision that I was gonna like blow up and be a millionaire at like 26 or something. That didn't happen, of course, and basically I kind of like left that alone, and that was something that was carrying, that's another thread in my life that's been carrying on for a while. But me being a writer and stuff like that and blah blah blah. So 2019 I decided to go to therapy because I just felt like I really needed to, and there was some other experiences that had happened by this time. So I was attuned to Reiki actually a first time with the Udemy course through the instructor, and I was having these experiences by this time. Of course, I'm not talking to that person, and I had done a reading for like somebody he knew, like an associate or something like that, and I was supposed to do one for someone else, and they never replied back to my message. And I was just kind of processing like what was going on, and I was feeling jealous, and I felt like there's something going on within this whole like friendship group. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like there's something going on in terms of like romance and relationships and people liking other people. And I kind of just didn't understand the whole process. So I was just thinking about that, and of course being codependent. Why doesn't he like me? Why isn't he interested in me? I do all this stuff and he's not interested, and I just feel like it's not right. And just being angry and bitter and sad and confused and trying to figure out what's wrong with me and why isn't he interested in me. Like, what am I not doing? So essentially in my mind I heard back off. And I was like, back off? Like, what are you talking about? And I just heard back off. And eventually I got another message that was talking about like, if you had looked into my eyes, you would have seen everything that was going on, and I thought you knew, and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, where the fuck is this coming from? Because, like, I do have mental health and stuff in my family, so I'm like, is this the end? Like, what is this? Like, what the fuck is going on? So that was going on, and then it got really bad one time. I kind of saw, like, not saw, but I kind of, what is it? I'm hurt in my mind, and it was just like, it doesn't matter how much you love him, as long as, we're together, he'll never forget me. And it was related to, like, sexual relations between people. And it's like, he'll never forget it. It doesn't matter if he's with you, he's gonna always want me, he's gonna always be with me, I'm gonna always have him. And I was just crying, because I was like, am I being, like, psychically attacked? Like, am I just making this up? Is this like a Lilith aspect coming out? Am I having, like, psychosis? What the fuck is going on? And so eventually I broke down to the point where I felt like I needed to go to a therapist. So I started going to a therapist, and by this time, like I said, I was thinking about experiencing somatic therapy, because I felt like I needed some therapy, but I was interested in trauma and how it's held in the body just for people in general. So I went to a therapy session, and at this time I was trying to make the decision to go back to school for pharmacy tech. I also mentioned that, like, it was another intellectual kind of, like, thread trauma, because, the program actually was for people who had just finished high school. They had no degree, and I had a degree and had already gone twice, attempted for a master's. So in that way, I was kind of overqualified for I'm looking around to make sure I don't see anybody, overqualified for the program in that sense. But, I, got in eventually, long story short. But I had started my therapy session, and I was supposed to go back. And, I let out my ugly cry in the first session, and we had some exercises, and she was like, just give me 6 weeks, and we're going to work on this, and things like that. And y'all, like, after that, I didn't even have any more sessions. It was just like, I went back the next time, and they were like, oh, you're not on the book. She didn't set you up for another one. And I thought she was like, we're meeting next week. I thought that's what she said. So I showed up, like, the next week, and she was like, no, that's not. That's not it. And so I left. And so that was my first and last time seeing that therapist. And I was like, I guess that was a sign that I had released enough that I could move on to the next phase of my life. So that's what I did. I moved on to the next phase of my life, and then, I got into the school. I went through the program. It was about 15 weeks or so, and then I graduated, and then I got a job, and at that job, I met somebody new, and he and I ended up being like roll dogs. He was just like, one day we were walking out after work, and he was like, I think we're gonna get along, like, really well. Like, there's something about you that, like, we get along really, really well. Because, like, the first day we were talking, and, like, even when I was saying stuff, he was like, yo, it's like you're my twin. Like, we just think alike, and we were, like, on the same wave. And it was cool, but that job showed me that I wasn't cut out for that specific part of my life, in terms of, like, being humble and being, like, I'm going to turn the light out because I just don't care anymore. Being humble and taking orders. And I felt like there was a past life kind of like flash or ancestral flash, because, like, the pharmacist, so I'm black, if you didn't know. And the pharmacist was like a white guy. I don't think he was like racist, but I definitely think he was like prejudiced. And I feel like the fact that he had like a PharmD like made it worse. I kind of felt like he thought that nobody knew as much as he did. And I have a really big thing with like leaders and people who claim to be leaders. I'm one of those people that's just like, I really don't like hierarchy at all, particularly when I'm not at the top. And the reason is because I feel like people at the top like to use the fact that they're at the top to just talk shit and treat people like shit. And it's kind of like, death will claim us all. We're all gonna die. Like, I don't really see why you think that you're the shit, because you're not. And, if you got all your shit stripped from you, who would you be? Or would you be as big and bad as you say? Like, you talk a lot of shit for somebody who has degrees and stuff like that, but let you get in trouble and you go to jail for something, because, like, people don't know, pharmacists do go to jail for shit. For mistakes, especially done in pharmacies, because they're the ones that ultimately signed off on it, and it's their license that's on the line. So I just didn't like how he was. Then there was this other lady who, like, it was just like, she would be cool 1 minute, and then the next minute she would be like very like aggressive. And I kind of felt like she was jealous. And I've kind of gotten this feeling before in workplaces where, like, when you're younger than everybody and you're doing the same job, all of a sudden everybody has a fucking problem with you. And it's because you're younger and you're doing the same job, essentially. And that, like, you're on the same level as somebody like twice your age and they can't handle it. And it's also that thing of they're in that environment and they don't see anything wrong with it, or they do and they don't do anything. And it's kind of like, well, that's not my issue and that's not my problem. So, there's that. And essentially, it was just a lot of incidents. I was very not myself. Well, I was my shadow self. I'll say that. I was my shadow devolved self. Like, I was very, like, me and that person, my, like, friend, my roll dog in that place, he eventually left. I had developed feelings for him, but I kind of sensed that energetic shift as well. And I sensed that he was not over his ex. So it was kind of one of those things where, like, even if I was interested, there was no point in partaking in anything, even if he did, like, come forward and say, I want something, because I just kind of don't want to be, like, not the side piece, but I don't want to be the person that people use to get where they want to go. And I know, like, in relationships and dating, because I don't date and stuff like that, but I know that, like, you don't always have that one person that you're with forever. But I do feel like some people, they actively seek a placeholder when there doesn't need to be one. Like, you don't need a placeholder in your life. You just need to wait. You need to hold place for yourself in a specific point in your life. If you feel like you can't get over someone, or you're waiting for something better, don't use somebody else, because I think that kind of fucks them up a little bit. And it's something that, I mean, of course you could say it's fated, it's destined, you were supposed to, but, like, some people, I kind of feel you just draw into your bullshit. So I didn't want to be that, and so I was, like, left alone essentially. And I kind of feel like once I was left alone, like, the person that I felt like was bullying me at the job got a little bit worse. And it was just kind of like saying things, because I was in a non-English speaking office. I was in an office with mainly Russian speakers as far as, like, the workers and who owned the place. And it was just kind of like the language barrier, and then, like, the way that they organized stuff was just unorganized, and you felt like people were just talking about you. And this is like that Leo and Pisces, like, paranoia shit doing. But I really do feel like people were just cliquish and language barrier and not wanting to learn. And there was a lot of people working there that shouldn't have worked there because they didn't have a fucking license. And I kind of felt like I was better than those people, but not because I'm, like, a better person or I'm holier than thou. It was just kind of like I actually worked for what I should be getting. And my job was paying like $12.50, but, like, with the license, I had 2 licenses. I had a state license and I had a national license in pharmacy tech. And in hospital, it was ranging, the pay was 17 to like $21, $22, and then going up from there. But that was like the base level, basically. And like, they let the friend that I had go, and he had like basically 10 fucking years of experience. So I was just kind of like, you don't respect anybody. Like, I started to notice that you don't really respect anybody. You just want to be the top dog, but you don't have the experience to like do anything. And so, you know, but you're going to cling to this superiority because you're the one that has the business. And I did have to step back because like I had started to rebel at my job, and I'm grateful that like there was an energy there that kind of like spared me from getting fired. But like, you know, because I was able to make mistakes and stuff like that at this job. So I'm not going to be like, oh, this job was just fucking terrible. But what I will say is that the job basically placed the language and the people who were like a part of that clique over the people that actually came through and had talent. And I kind of realized that like if you had talent at that pharmacy, they were going to treat you like shit. And because they did treat people with talent like shit, and they overworked people, and they didn't have any kind of structure, people that shouldn't have been in charge or shouldn't have been owning the goddamn business in the first fucking place were the ones that owned it. And that's where I had to sit back and be like, you know what, like, humble thyself, because you can get mad all day at the people who have the business and treat people like shit and the upper class and stuff like that, but the fact of the matter is they own the stuff and you just work for them. And I realized then that I never wanted to really work another fucking job again. And so I didn't. Well, I haven't yet, but money is like not there. So I'm like, girl, you need to do something. But basically, I was just like, oh shit, like, I really don't like this. Like I said, the lady was kind of like just gossiping, and even though I knew it wasn't in English, I knew she was just gossiping, and I knew that she was starting shit. And I was like a rebel rouser. I was like a whistleblower. I was just saying a lot of shit, and they knew that they couldn't control me. They knew that, like, you know, they couldn't get me to shut up because they tried to like penalize people who like talked. And I think one of the ladies at the office was like an atheist, and she would call us into the office. The owner called me to the office and basically said that the reason why everyone else's productivity was down around me was because I was talking. And I will say that I was very aggressive with the people there. I will say that I was aggressive, and I will say that like I wasn't the nicest person at that job, but I will also say that I felt like I was backed into a corner, that you didn't see me for who I really was in terms of my talent and in terms of what I can bring. And that's something that Leo has to deal with. Like, when you have people who don't value your talents and what you bring, you become the bully, essentially, because you are being energetically bullied by not being acknowledged. And so you become the bully to other people, or you become the bully to the people who are not seeing you in a stance of demanding that you be seen. And it's one of the ultimate signs that you're codependent. But once he told me that, I was like crying. I was like very like just mentally unstable at this job. And I just saw how everything had culminated in my life to where I was at a place that like hired people there legally, paid me the least, but had me doing like jobs that I shouldn't have, had me training people that I shouldn't have. The person who was the supervisor couldn't speak English, so she couldn't train anybody, and she kind of pushed people to do other stuff, but she understood English. But it was just like, you didn't want to get outside your bubble to learn English, to actually communicate with people, to know people. And if you guys just didn't want certain people here, you can't legally say that, but you can just say you're not a good fit for the company. And it was like that same vibe of everybody like fucking being okay with the dysfunction. And I just looked and I was like, is this all my life is? like I could just see every facet of how things were run, you know, because the boss only came in because I felt like he only came in and they only started saying shit because their books weren't right. It had nothing to do with anything else. I don't even think the co-owner would have said anything had the books been okay. But I feel like there was a lot of money happening, and he was trying to figure out who do we need to rein in and who do we need to make an example of for people to stop. And, you know, they had hired some people. There was one girl that she wanted to be hired there, and I told her to do something else, and she was like, no, and she didn't get hired because they made a lie and said they didn't have space, but they brought somebody on like the next week or some shit like that. And everybody could see that this job was just not I don't understand why they thought we couldn't see. Oh my God, we couldn't see what was going on. Like, we all can see what's going on, madam, sir. We all can see that, like, you're full of shit and you don't hold up to your promises and you're not a business of integrity. Like, we can all see that. Like, we don't need, you know, the veil to be fucking lifted at Halloween to see this. Like, a blind man could literally see this shit. You guys, or your vibe is just low. Your business is low. And, you know, I just didn't understand why, like, we were accepting the bullshit. But I was just like, come the fuck on. Like, I was like, everything is just so unorganized. I had met a few people there that were cool. Like, one girl wanted to get in spirituality like me. I felt like everybody else just, they were there, and I felt like they accepted that they weren't going to do anything else with their lives. And I was just like, when I feel backed into a corner, when I feel people are telling me that I can't do something and this is all that I can be, I get really annoyed and I try to rebel. And I'm trying to work on that because it always backfires. But, like, I really do feel like that. I feel like I'm boxed in, and after a certain point in time I also get bored of jobs. So I get bored of jobs like after 6 months anyway. But it was just like a lot. It was just like calling us, having these meetings, saying you're making changes but you're not. It was just like a lot of shit that I was just like, you know, you're not doing anything, you're not changing anything, you're just giving lip service, and I'm not here for that shit. Like, you gonna do something or what? Like, so the final straw at my job basically came when the pharmacist, he was like, there was a specific way we were supposed to put stuff on the counter. So, like, we were supposed to put the medication next to the bottle medication next to the unit dose pack. So it's long-term care. People usually don't get vials unless it's specified, and they get unit blisters so you don't have to, like, worry about not taking a dose or taking too much or something like that. You can tell it punches out every day. And I put it down and I walked away, but the way that I put it down, I kind of like half-assed because I was kind of tired of his ass. Like, I felt like he was like a bitch, and I was just tired of his fucking ass. So I like put it down, and there was another girl who like basically did everything that she was supposed to do, and he would like fuss at me about not doing it, and he would like, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing what I say? And I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, I'm out the Matrix. I'm out the fucking Matrix. Like, you can't control me. Like, I was so angry. Like, but it came to a head, and basically, he was like fussing back and forth about how things were supposed to be, and I just left. I like went to the manager's office, and I was like, if he says something else, I'm like done. Like, I'm tired of dealing with this. He was like, well, did he tell you what to do? I was like, he told me twice, but he never explained it fully either time what I was supposed to do. He was like, well, he told you twice, and this and that and the third. And then the other co-owner came in, and I was just crying, and I was just upset, and I was just like, you have people that are doing this and that, and I brought up the lead. She was like, well, she's not here anymore. And then she asked, like, am I passive aggressive? I'm like, yeah, you are. And she's like, I don't think I am. And I was like, of course you don't, because you're not on the receiving end of what you're doing. And she was just like, oh, well, I don't think that I am. And the lady was like, you know, because I told them flat out, I don't see hierarchy. And she was like, well, he is above you. He is above you. And I was just like, no, you're not. Like, you're a human being. You deserve respect just like everybody else. I don't care. Like, and they're just like, well, he's above you. How do you think he feels that he's a pharmacist and you're not listening to me? I'm like, if you explain what you're supposed to do properly, the people would know. But you guys don't have any rules. Like, essentially, you do what you want, when you want, and then when it doesn't work out, you're kind of like, oh, well, we're going to blame everybody else. And I was just like, you know what? This was a whole combination of my whole fucking life. And every fucking vice and shadow self just came out at that job. And I was like, oh, shit, this is just like too much for me. So eventually, I like snapped. And I made the decision. I didn't make a snap decision, like go home and like throw my fucking time card out. But I basically went home and thought to myself, like, do I want to be here anymore? Do I want to do this anymore? And I said, no, I don't. So I basically put in my resignation. I put it in like a month ahead of time because I was like, it was like COVID had started. So I was like, well, you know, give them some time or whatever. But I had already seen that they had like family members coming in and they were like essentially going to take over the business. So I knew that like they were going to have a replacement any fucking way. I felt like they didn't have people that were skilled or talented or had any like wherewithal or mental aptitude when it came to the business. Like, not to say that they're dumb, but I'm saying that like you got the job because you're in the circle, but I don't necessarily think you have the capabilities, and also you don't have the license, so technically you're illegally working here. But whatever, like, it was a mess when like the inspections came. They like hid people in the room and everything. I'm telling every fucking thing. I don't care, because I want my conscience to be clean, and I think saying this out loud really will help. But you know, and I'm not editing anything because I can't edit on this fucking phone. It's too goddamn old, and I don't have the capabilities, and I'm not trying to learn. So essentially I knew like the writing was on the wall, like it was over anyway. So, and I essentially was like, I know I'm the loser in this situation because I'm leaving the job. They're going to continue. And it's like, you always feel like when people take a stand, they always end up being like the losers in the situation. Like I feel like the people that take a stand that are like righteous and like stand for something in life and have morals and have a spine and can navigate their way through the world, or at least are trying to, in a way that doesn't upset cosmic order like all the fucking time, they end up being the ones that seem like shortchanged, fucked over, beaten, abused, maybe dead, gaslighted, like mental health decline. Like, I feel like the people that really be on some shit, like they be on some next level, get your mind out the matrix type shit, like they're always the ones that end up ass out. And it's kind of like, you know, like what the fuck. But essentially I quit the job like mid-July. My coworker that I come in contact with and was kind of close to, she quit basically in August. And I feel like the pharmacist knew he had fucked up by pushing people away. And my dad actually told me, he was like, they're trying to get you out of there. That's why they're doing all this stuff. And I felt like they were trying to push me out too. But he was like, yeah, because they're doing all that stuff. And I was explaining all this stuff. And he was like, yeah, they're doing all these things because they don't want you there. Like, they don't want you there. They can't handle you being there. He didn't say that, but essentially they couldn't handle me being there because I felt like, for me, I was going to speak my truth and I was going to do things efficiently for me and find my own process and my own way in the world. And they didn't like that. They wanted people to do the things that they had always done, the way that they had always done them. And I kind of could see that they were not effective in that. And I was one of the fastest fillers. I was one of the best fillers. I was one of the most organized. And I knew that. And people, I don't think they could stand it because I literally said to people like, you know, these are my qualifications. I don't have to work here. Like, I have state and national license. I don't have to work in my state. I can go out of state if I wanted to. You can't, because you can't even speak like the language with people. You're relegated to one little space of the world. You can't even go outside of your community to have a job. That's not cool. That's not helpful for you. So like, you're trying to make it seem like it's hate, but it's just like, it's not for you. It's not working for you, you know? So to wrap this all up, I quit the job. I felt like everybody that was good basically left. And essentially, I feel like the pharmacist knew he fucked up. He didn't even show up He didn't even show up like the last day that I was there. And I was like, yeah, I feel like you didn't, because you knew that you would fucking regret watching me walk out the door. And so essentially, I left. I had done some other ventures after that, but it didn't work out. I thought I was going to get a job, and it seems like the process is just like terrible with that. And then also I ended up paying for a course that like I was like, yeah, I have enough money and stuff like that, and then I like fucked it off and ended up like not, and ended up getting like a karmic rebound because I wasn't learning the lesson that I should have learned in 2017 when I left my other job. So now I'm like regrouping, rebounding, trying to get it together, trying to like save, face and shit like that. But essentially, I am, living life. That stimulus check hit. I don't care what nobody say about like people with the stimulus check. Like, that bitch hit, and I was like, all right, I got a little bit of oxygen, just a little bit. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna breathe. Shit, I'm gonna breathe. So that's basically what happened. And so I hope you enjoyed this, y'all. That's my spiritual awakening up until now. I'm still processing things regarding work and being comfortable and being satisfied and feeling like I'm good enough because I don't feel good enough and all that other shit. And it's a process, it's a learning thing, but I think when you have experiences where you're like up there like a lot, and you're up close and personal like a lot, it puts a lot on you. And as a result, like, it just takes a toll. So to anybody out there struggling, out there in the spiritual world, more power to ya. So thanks for watching my story, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.